think that's consistent with the parties' agreement?
Yeah, that's fine, Judge.
Okay, so at some point, so we will admit, I think we're talking about
66.
66 is admitted for the limited purpose outlined in the parties' stipulation of facts, which is Exhibit 89.
And then does Your Honor want us to put it on a disc and actually give it to the court?
Yeah, just to keep it as part of,
Yep.
of the memorialized in the record. I think that's the only way we can do it.
And we can do, for tomorrow morning, have another disc ready with the animation on it in case the same thing, in case that is presented to the jury.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. All right, let's bring the jury in. Okay, please be seated. And let's resume with the testimony.
Thank you, Judge. Before we get to more of the PowerPoint, can you estimate how many hours you put into this investigation in total?
How many hours? No. I mean, this was weeks of work.
Okay. And in order to get the data that we're going to be talking about here in a moment, how did you get access to that data?
A search warrant was obtained.
Okay. And was this data for the Tacoma?
Yes.
Okay. And were you able to get electronic data from the Jetta?
No.
Why not?
So this Volkswagen Jetta was, I believe, a 2004 model year, and Volkswagens were not supported by the Bosch CDR system until 2013. So we just weren't able to.
Okay. So you got a search warrant in order to access the defendant's Tacoma. And then take us through the steps. Once you got that search warrant, what did you do?
Okay, so again, the easiest way to image an airbag control module is to plug into the diagnostic port on a vehicle. This vehicle, the electrical system, was damaged, so I located the vehicle within the module. They're normally located in the center tunnel area, like underneath the carpeting, and I plugged a cable into the module. The cable was connected to the CDR, the crash data retrieval interface. The interface was connected to my computer, and then the vehicle identification number was typed into the program, and then some notes, some comments were typed in by me, and then the software images the data that's contained within the module.
Okay. And the data that you received, it relates only to the first crash?
Correct.
Were you able to get any electronic data with respect to the cruiser?
Yes.
Okay. And did you use any of that data in your crash investigation?
Yes.
Okay. So, just for a moment, the cruiser information you got, the electronic data, were you able to ascertain how fast the cruiser was going at the time just prior to impact?
The cruiser was speeding up. I believe it was 97 miles an hour. It sped up to 107.
Okay. And what about the braking action?
There was no braking.
Okay. And that is information you received from the electronic data from the cruiser?
Correct.
And at some point, the recorded data, the data stopped in the cruiser. You couldn't access anything beyond a certain point. Is that correct?
Well, the way the data is recorded, the command to deploy the airbag is the signal to record. So either it's on like a circular buffer, but essentially the command to deploy the airbag, the module will reach back and store a certain amount of data. So in the case of the cruiser, it was 5 seconds worth of pre-crash data or pre-deployment data was in the report.
Okay. So we're going to go through a few charts here, and we won't get into great detail about them because they're very complicated, and plus I believe that Corporal Sorensen is going to be talking about some of it tomorrow. Okay. So this event data recorder, EDR 2012 Toyota, what is the significance of the information just generally that you received there?
So this chart is, or these charts are from the data, the electronic data stored within the Toyota Tacoma's airbag control module.
Okay, and at the bottom it says event record record summary at retrieval. What is that, please?
So this particular model was capable of storing more than one event, and essentially there's 4 events that are listed there, and they're listed by TRG count.
What is TRG count?
It's just the trigger count. It's just a Toyota name for the type of recording event. But all 4 of those events occurred within 143 milliseconds of each other.
And the one that occurred first within that 143 milliseconds of each other was the 3rd prior event?
Correct.
And what does that indicate happened there?
So basically what this indicates is the first event, or the trigger count 1, is the frontal rear event. And then there was a side event, then there was a rollover type event, then there was a side crash type event.
So when you use, it uses the word event, it means what's happening to the Tacoma?
Correct.
Now, clearly this is a pretty sophisticated chart here. Can you just tell us generally what kind of information you get from this chart without going into the numbers and everything?
Okay. So this is from, can I use the pointer?
Yes.
So this is from the first event, trigger 1, which is that frontal event. So again, if it uses a time across the top, so the time 0 is the command to deploy the airbag. So then we would go back, it goes back in half-second increments to 4.8 seconds prior to the command to deploy the airbag. And it provides a listing of vehicle speed, accelerator pedal, whether or not the brakes are on, if the brakes are on, how much pressure is being applied to the brake pedal, gives steering wheel inputs, the shift position that the vehicle is in, just a lot of information.
And to your knowledge, this is information that Corporal Sorensen will address tomorrow?
Yes.
In his testimony? Okay. And did you divide the crash investigation duties for a particular reason?
Well, it was a team effort. I mean, a lot of our members were involved in this investigation, just the same as a lot of the troopers at the barracks were involved. A lot of our detectives were involved, so it was all hands on deck.
Okay. And what is this chart, please?
These are some of the calculations that we did using the values that were provided by the Bosch crash data retrieval report for the Toyota.
Well, can you tell us what it is? What is a tire size conversion? What are you doing there?
Okay, so all vehicles have a manufacturer's recommended tire size. There's a little sticker that's posted on the inside of the driver's door which says this vehicle should have this size tire. And this particular Toyota, the recommended tire size was 265 by 70 with a 16-inch rim. The actual tires that were on the vehicle were size 265, 75, R16. So there was, their circumference was a little bit bigger, 3.4% to be exact, due to the difference in the aspect ratio of the recommended was a size 70 and the actual was a 75. So the larger circumference of the tire, we did some calculations to adjust the speed that was reported, because the module is reporting speed based on what the manufacturer's recommended tire size is, not what's actually on the vehicle.
So I'd like to talk to you now a little bit about some of your general findings in your crash investigation with respect to these two crashes. Did you reach any conclusions with respect to the weather in that night and whether it contributed all to the cause of the impact?
I don't think the weather was a factor in this collision.
Was the road surface wet?
It was.
Okay. Thank you. What about, in your crash investigation, you had told us that you looked at the weather, the environmental factors. Do you also look at the roadway to see whether there are any defects or
Yes.
or design issues? Did you look at that as well, I-89, to see if in fact there were any road defects or design issues?
I did.
Okay.
We did look at the road surface condition, and the road was in fine condition.
Okay. And did you did you actually have the defendant's vehicle examined by a mechanic?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the result of that inspection?
There were no mechanical defects that were located that would have caused or contributed to this collision.
And based on your crash investigation, did you determine whether the person operating the Jetta contributed in any way to the accident?
There's no evidence of any improper operation.
Okay. The charts that we were just looking at, I think there were 4 of them. Did you give that information to Corporal Sorensen for his calculations in what he's going to testify about tomorrow?
Yes, I did.
Did you do any other investigation in this case other than what we've talked about?
I think we've covered it.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Yes, just briefly, Judge, thank you. Afternoon.
Hello?
So I just want to talk to you briefly about maximum engagement. This is a rendering of what the vehicles, my understanding, would look like at the point of maximum engagement by matching up the damage on the two vehicles to each other and putting them together, correct?
Correct.
All right. So it's not the way the vehicles looked at the point of impact between the two vehicles, correct?
Correct.
I mean, that's back in time a little bit.
Correct.
And you don't know, you can't match that up because you don't have that information, correct? Well, let me rephrase it. I'll withdraw that. It's a maybe fraction of a second before the maximum engagement is when you have the first point of contact, correct?
Correct.
And the vehicles could have been in a different angle to each other at that point, correct?
Slightly different.
Yeah. That's all. That's all I have to do.
Sergeant Bollinger, when you say slightly different, can you please expand on that?
Well, there's not much, if you think about two vehicles crashing together, from the point where they first begin to touch to the point where they begin to deform to reach the position of maximum engagement, it's happening in a matter of approximately 100 milliseconds. So it happens like that. So there may be a little bit of a change in their a change in how they are. There may be a slight difference from how they are at the point of first touch to the point of maximum engagement, but there's just not much time and distance to change greatly.
So it would be your opinion that the vehicles at first impact would not look significantly different than as they look here at maximum engagement?
No, they would be backed up slightly apart from each other. In this image, their damage profiles are matched up, and they would just be backed up a few feet. But they would still be approaching each other at approximately that same angle.
Thank you.
Nothing else, Judge? Thank you.
Okay, you can step down. Thank you.
Okay, Your Honor, that is all the witnesses we have for today.
Okay, so that is going to conclude the testimony for today. So we're going to excuse you for the rest of the day. Again, the reminder to please avoid any media accounts, any independent research on the case, any conversations with anyone about the case at this point. You haven't heard all the evidence yet, so it's important to continue to keep an open mind. So have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning. And a reminder, tomorrow, we are a half day tomorrow because I sit in the treatment court docket in the afternoon, so we'll only be here in the morning, and then we'll be back here Friday morning. Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, we just have a quick point of clarification here tomorrow. So it's my understanding that Corporal Sorensen will testify in total. This is a total testimony, and then at that point, we'll send the jury out, and then there will be argument about whether or not we should show them the animations. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, unless the court is satisfied that you've laid a proper foundation for the animation, they will be that could be an argument that we would be able to do at side bench. If it coincides with an appropriate break in the morning, we can certainly do that.
Okay.
But it's certainly that the argument and that decision will be done at the hearing of the jury.
Okay, I might want some voir dire on that outside the presence of the jury.
Okay.
So,
The expectation from the state is that his testimony in its entirety will lay the foundation for the animation. Everything he's going to testify about points to that. So I expect his testimony to be about an hour and a half, and then we can decide if we want to break and we can make the arguments.
Well, if that's the case, then I would expect we would give the jury a break at that point, and then allow you to do, you wanted to do your limited voir dire outside?
I want to do that outside the presence of the jury, and then the court can decide.
Okay, we can handle it that way then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other issues?
No, and then the state has Shepard.
Yes, we'll call Officer Shepard as our last witness after that. But I imagine it'll probably line up well with the end of the day.
Okay, all right.